I never thought I'd see my grandfather pull a gun on anyone. But when 3 fake HOA officers showed up at our door at 7 a.m. demanding he take down his American flag, everything changed. They called it a threatening political display. That flag was folded at his best friend's funeral. And when they stepped onto his property uninvited, they learned a hard lesson about respect. It began with a suspicious letter in our mailbox 3 days earlier. No stamp, no return address, just a printed sheet accusing Grandpa of displaying a threatening political symbol. That symbol? The American flag he raised every morning like clockwork. The letter claimed to be from our neighborhood's homeowners association, citing violations of Section 9D, non-neutral displays of patriotism. It demanded immediate removal or face compliance enforcement. Grandpa just read it once, set it down, and said, "Printed in Comic Sans. That's the real crime." I laughed, but something felt off. I checked the county database that night. There was no active HOA in our neighborhood. No Section 9D. No flag compliance codes. The whole thing was fake. The next day, Karen's husband Ted showed up at our door with a pie and an overly friendly smile. Karen was the self-proclaimed clipboard queen of the neighborhood, always finding problems with everyone's property but her own. "Karen feels bad about the misunderstanding," Ted said, handing over the pie. Then, trying to sound casual, he asked, "Is this house still in your name or the family trust?" Grandma smiled sweetly. "Would you like cream with that question?" That night, someone bent Grandpa's flagpole. Not enough to break it, just enough to send a message. Grandpa fixed it without saying a word. 7:14 a.m. I was jolted awake by voices outside. Looking through my bedroom window, I saw 3 men in tactical-style vests standing at the edge of our property. They weren't police, no badges, no real uniforms. Just cargo vests, knockoff radios, and clean boots that clearly had never seen a day of actual work. "You're in violation of HOA Code 9D, the leader announced, holding up a clipboard. "We're here for compliance enforcement." Grandpa was already on the porch in his bathrobe, coffee mug in hand. "You're on my lawn," he said calmly. "This is an official inspection," clipboard guy replied. "Your failure to cooperate could be escalated." When he stepped forward onto our property, Grandpa didn't flinch. "One more step and I'll escalate you into the bushes." Clipboard guy held his ground, but his eyes darted sideways, a signal. One of the others moved his hand toward his belt. That's when Grandpa's Glock appeared. He didn't aim it or wave it around. He just held it low and steady, like it was the most natural thing in the world for a 72-year-old man in a bathrobe to be holding a loaded handgun at 7 in the morning. "We'll be reporting this," clipboard guy said, his voice suddenly tight. "Great," Grandpa replied. "Spell my name right. The S in Morrison is for Second Amendment." I stepped outside just as the men were backing away. The scene looked like something from a low-budget action movie, 3 men in tactical gear retreating from an elderly man in a bathrobe holding a gun and a coffee mug. "Stay on the porch," Grandpa told me. "Witness statements are cleaner from 10 feet away." They left, one of them tripping over the curb in his hurry. I laughed. Grandpa didn't. He just lowered the Glock and took a long sip of his now-cold coffee. "I don't like how that one looked at the fence," he muttered. "I thought it was over. I was wrong." 22 minutes later, an unmarked police cruiser pulled up. 2 officers stepped out, not rushing, just calmly assessing the situation. The younger one looked at the flag while the older one studied Grandpa. "Sir, can you set the firearm down?" the older officer asked. That's when I realized this wasn't over. It hadn't even started. The cops weren't late, they were pointed. And someone had made sure they were aimed at us. From across the street, I could see Karen watching with a satisfied smile, arms crossed, like she'd just served justice with a side of pie. Later that day, I decided to investigate. These people weren't just annoying neighbors, they were organized. I traced their letters' metadata and found it was created on a cracked Windows 7 machine. The file name? Master Compliance Senior Target Final Version 2.docs. I checked our router logs and found 2 unknown devices piggybacking our network. They had been watching us. This wasn't about a flag. It was about access. These people were targeting seniors and we weren't their first victims. I found forum posts about similar incidents in nearby counties, fake citations, harassment, pressure to sell, then houses flipped fast through shell companies. A scam ring disguised as concerned neighbors. The next morning we found another threat in our mailbox, a flyer with no name or branding, just the words, "You still have time to comply," and a picture of our porch taken the previous night. That afternoon the phone rang. The voice on the other end was smooth, practiced. "Mr. Raymond Morrison?" This is Officer Bradley from the HOA Security Division. We're reaching out regarding your recent compliance violation. Grandpa gave me a look that said, "Don't say a word." Is this a live call? Grandpa asked. Yes, sir. We're just verifying some details for the digital update process. What exactly are you updating? Nothing personal, just standard records: name, insurance provider, pension source, mortgage balance. Grandpa hung up mid-sentence. Trace it, he said, setting the phone down like it might explode. I was already on it. 3 signal jumps later, I traced the call to a strip mall 1 town over, registered to a business called Civic Edge Support LLC. No landline, no public office. Digging deeper, I found 15 duplicate websites with different HOA names but identical structures. Each featured a report a violation button and a settle fine now portal that asked for everything from date of birth to social security numbers. This wasn't just about a flag. It was about the person holding it. That night we went into full lockdown mode. Mom double-checked every lock and window. Grandma unplugged the Wi-Fi camera and replaced it with an analog backup Grandpa had built in 1994. And Grandpa? He sat in his usual spot, sharpening a screwdriver on a whetstone. Why a screwdriver? I asked. Because people don't expect to lose a fight to a toolbox, he replied. The next day brought another letter: final courtesy notice. Continued non-cooperation may result in physical verification. Attached was a QR code that led to a dashboard with real-time photos of our property, each tagged and time-stamped. The latest one read, "Last verified. Today, 5:46 a.m. We weren't just being watched. We were being targeted. Tuesday arrived. I'd never seen Grandpa this calm. When 3 men appeared on our front porch without knocking or announcing themselves, he didn't even blink. The same guy from before led the charge, sunglasses, clipboard tucked under his arm. Behind him stood a younger man holding a silver binder, and a third man built like a wall. We're here to finalize compliance verification, the leader announced. You weren't invited, Grandpa replied without looking up. This isn't a social call. It's about to be your last one. The younger man stepped forward and handed over a paper. This is a printed notice of HOA enforcement review. Due to multiple refusal to cooperate incidents, we're authorized to inspect. Authorized by who? Grandpa stood up. By the County Municipal Board, section. There is no municipal board, sir. There's no law giving HOA enforcers right of entry. And if you're impersonating law enforcement, I suggest you remember that's a felony in this state. The big guy shifted his weight. Grandpa watched him like he was reading subtitles on a foreign film. Then, calm as breathing, Grandpa stepped over to the bench, lifted the lid of a cooler and pulled out his GLOCK. He didn't brandish it or lift it to chest level. He just held it down and forward, visible, centered, undeniable. Now, he said, let's start over. Name, badge, jurisdiction. The leader opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. We're contractors for the HOA. You're escalating? No, you escalated when you walked past my line without cause. You're not compliance officers. You're mailroom mercenaries in fake vests. The big guy stepped forward. Big mistake. Grandpa adjusted his grip. Safety off. The click wasn't loud, but it carved silence into the air. I was watching from inside and for a second I almost didn't move. This wasn't a man protecting his porch. This was a man who'd spent 30 years running checkpoint security and only needed one good reason to shut it all down. Step back, I said, finally stepping outside. You're trespassing, you're being recorded, and you're about to make the dumbest decision of your week. We have legal authority, the leader insisted, lifting his clipboard. That's a Staples special, I snapped. You printed that header last night. Want me to name the font? They hesitated because they knew I was right. Then Karen's voice cut through the moment. I warned you, she called from the curb, phone up, already filming. This is exactly what non-compliance looks like. This man is dangerous. Dangerous. I turned to her. Your goons just walked onto our porch with no legal grounds. The community deserves peace, she shouted. You're making people feel unsafe. You planted a listening device in our hedges last night. She blinked too fast too many times. Prove it. I don't have to. I already gave the proof to someone who does care. The 3 men didn't say a word. They weren't officers, they were fall guys. Grandpa didn't move, didn't blink. You've got 10 seconds to get off my porch. Or what? The leader asked. Or I call the real cops and have them bring the zip ties this time. They left, not fast, not angry, just slowly, like they finally realized they weren't the predators in this story. They were the prey. But Karen didn't move. She stood there filming like she was narrating her own documentary on community courage. "You'll regret this," she said. "I'm filing a full incident report with video. Make sure to title it, 'Karen Gets Owned by a Grandpa with a Gun,'" I told her. 30 minutes later, 2 squad cars pulled up, this time with lights. Real badges. Real authority. But they weren't investigating an incident. They were managing a narrative. They came asking who had pulled the gun, not why it was necessary. Karen was all smiles, watching the cruiser pull into our driveway like she'd just won a prize. That night, Grandpa and I rigged the porch with sensors. Motion detectors through the side gate, recalibrated floodlights, backup power cells independent of the house grid. Grandma was 4 steps ahead. She'd pushed the couch 6 inches off the wall to expose a small compartment in the flooring lined with mylar blankets, bottled water, and what looked like a modified stun gun. "Used to be a cattle prod," she explained with a shrug. "What else don't I know about you?" I asked. "You know I bake pies," she said. "You didn't ask what I did when Ray was in the field." She handed me a pair of gloves and walked off humming something I'd only ever heard in war documentaries. Mom wasn't handling it well. "This is overkill," she muttered. "This can't be happening. They're HOA scammers, not mercenaries." "They're predators," I said, adjusting a camera angle. "And they're organized." At 4:12 a.m., we placed a decoy folder on the porch, a fake compliance form signed HOA Senior Verification Division. Inside was a QR code linked to a dummy site that would track the exact GPS location of whoever opened it. "If they take the bait?" I asked. "Then we know they're not just watching," Grandpa said. "They're hunting." The surveillance van. Later that day, an unmarked van crept by our house, dark-tinted windows, engine barely audible. A camera flashed briefly from the passenger window. "They're mapping our response time," Grandpa muttered. "Seeing how fast we react, where we move, who watches them." "And what do we do?" "Nothing. Because tonight we don't react. We record." Mom finally cracked that evening. "You're putting this whole family in danger," she told Grandpa. "They put us in danger the minute they stepped on our porch," he replied. "You think you're still in the field, Ray, but this isn't a battlefield. It's a neighborhood. To them it's both." At 9:32 p.m., we activated our full system, cameras, microphones, redundant battery backups. The flash drive in the dummy folder was hot, recording. The side gate was bolted. The sensor grid glowed green. "Worst case scenario?" I asked. "They breach. Best case. We catch them doing it." At 11:01 p.m. the porch light cut out. Not a power failure. Someone had deliberately disabled it. The motion sensor triggered, reset itself. On my phone, I watched as the surveillance feed lit up one zone after another. Someone was at the side gate. Someone was on the porch. Someone else was near the back fence. Grandpa appeared behind me, already dressed, Glock holstered but visible. "You see them? One near the door, 2 flanking, 4th maybe a decoy." Outside, one of them picked up the decoy folder. We had coated the handle with invisible UV marker gel. Under the infrared feed, he lit up like a cheap Halloween costume. The second guy hit our tripwire near the garage door, 3 rusty folding tins wired together with fishing line. The sound was like a metallic scream. He cursed and jumped back as the motion light kicked on, catching his face in 4K. But it was the third guy who changed everything. He didn't run, he charged straight up the steps and kicked our storm door. Grandpa opened the main door with the calm of a man turning off a slow-burning kettle. One look, one silent moment, and then the unmistakable sound of a safety being switched off. "Step back now," Grandpa said, his voice cold enough to frost the doorknob. "We thought this place was abandoned," the guy yelled, panic edging his voice. "You don't have to pull a weapon, man." "I haven't," Grandpa replied, taking a single step forward. "Not yet." That's when Karen showed up in her bathrobe, hair perfectly done, phone already recording. "This is it. This is the behavior I've been warning people about. Aggression. Weapons. Non-compliance. Karen, your guys just kicked my front door." I shouted. "I don't have guys." "Then what's this? Your Craigslist community improvement team?" "This was a misunderstanding. You printed the folder they tried to steal. It's tagged with your printer's metadata." That hit her hard. Her face dropped, her voice caught in her throat. One of the men came limping up from the side yard, sleeve torn, covered in our UV paint and garden mulch. "Karen," he wheezed, "we're not doing this. This guy's armed. He's got sensors and traps, and I think he filmed everything. We'll handle it legally." "No, you handle this," he said, pointing at her. "I'm done." He left, not walked, ran. The others followed quickly. Karen didn't run, but her fake smile disappeared, replaced by real fear. "You set this up," she said, pointing at our cameras. "You plan to catch us." "I plan to survive you," Grandpa replied. "You don't know who you're messing with." "Neither do you." By the time the real police arrived, our footage was already syncing to cloud storage. Grandma had 4 timestamp screenshots printed out, and I had a USB drive labeled HOA Insurgents 1am.mp4. The officers didn't question the Glock this time. They just asked, "Do you have the video?" "We have 6, I said. "That's going to make this easier." As they put Karen in the police car, she whispered something into her sleeve. That's when I realized she wasn't working alone. 3 days later, we attended the neighborhood meeting Karen had scheduled. Normally, these were empty affairs held in the middle of the day when most people were working. But this time, every seat was full. Grandma had spread the word through the senior phone tree. Grandpa had handed out printouts. I had posted an anonymous tip in the neighborhood Facebook group with the subject line, "Is the HOA stealing your data?" Karen stood at the front, clipboard in hand, behind her a cheap projector with a sheet taped to the wall. "Thank you for coming," she began. "As your compliance coordinator, I want to start today's meeting with a few brief objections," Grandpa said, standing up. He didn't yell, didn't gesture. Just stood. "Sir, we haven't opened the floor," Karen tried. "Then open it." The man seated next to Karen cleared his throat. "Karen, maybe we should just let him speak. There's nothing to discuss until we have footage," I said, clicking the remote in my hand. The projector flickered to life. Slide 1. One of Karen's men mid-sprint across our lawn. Slide 2. The gloved hand gripping our decoy folder, UV marker glowing. Slide 3. Karen herself standing on the street, yelling, "This is what I've been warning people about." "That's edited," she said quickly. "Unedited timestamp," I replied, tapping the screen. "Original resolution, metadata preserved." "Would you like to explain how your voice ended up here at 1 a.m. while 4 men flee a crime scene?" More evidence followed. The fake HOA form she'd emailed out asking for banking details and social security numbers. Her scam ring dashboard tracking neighborhood targets, with Grandpa tagged as hostile veteran, escalate pressure. The room exploded. People waved their forms in the air, shouting about how they'd been scammed too. Karen fled through the side exit, passing a man in a gray blazer who walked straight toward me. "Impressive presentation," he said with a smile that never reached his eyes. "Thanks. Would you mind stepping outside? We need to talk about what happens next." Because Karen was never the boss. She was just the face. And the man who built the system she weaponized had just introduced himself. Outside in the parking lot, Blazer Man tried to intimidate us with what he knew about our family military records, college transcripts, property deeds. He offered us a pivot: take the win, let the videos vanish, let Karen disappear, and his operation would continue elsewhere. "You're not smart," Grandpa told him flatly. The man blinked once. "Excuse me? You're careful, polished, trained. But you made one mistake, you showed up." The man smiled again. "This operation has been running since 2004. You think you're the first smart kid with a laptop and a conscience?" "No," Grandpa said. "But we'll be the last you underestimated." The man pulled out a phone showing a countdown timer. "You have 24 hours to scrub the video, remove the Facebook post, delete your copies. If not..." He let the threat hang. "We done here?" Grandpa asked me. "Not quite," I said, holding up my phone. "Smile. You've been live for the last 18 minutes. Say hi to my 62,000 Twitter followers." His face didn't change. "Then I guess we both escalate." The next morning, foreclosure notices appeared on 3 doors in the neighborhood, including ours. But we were ready. Step 1. Grandma delivered personalized letters to every neighbor explaining the scam, with a QR code leading to a Google Drive folder containing all our evidence. Step 2. I launched a public website, HOAreckoning.org, with downloadable folders labeled, "The System They Built and How We Broke It." Step 3. Grandpa made one phone call. I don't know who he called, but 3 hours later we had a federal lawyer. By 8 p.m. we were on the local news. By 9 p.m., all of Blazer Man's websites had vanished. At 11:47 p.m., an anonymous email landed in my inbox. "You should have taken the deal." Inside was a screenshot of our security footage from 5 minutes earlier, a silhouette on our lawn, and one line of text: "We're still watching." Grandpa didn't panic. He simply opened a briefcase I'd never seen before, containing 2 flash drives, a burner phone, and a sealed envelope labeled, If you're reading this, we lost. At midnight, we triggered our final move, a live feed across every platform, 3 anonymous whistleblowers coming forward, and our lawyer filing for federal investigation citing interstate wire fraud and elder targeting. Most importantly, we sent an open letter to every HOA in the county with the subject line, "They're coming for you next unless you help us finish them first." It worked. Within 12 hours, 9 board members from 6 other neighborhoods came forward with evidence. One of them admitted they had been forced to participate under threat of mortgage revocation. A week later, federal agents swept the fake HOA office. 3 arrests were made. The man in the gray blazer was picked up in another state. Every affected neighborhood received restitution notices. Victims were cleared of their fake debts. Karen testified in exchange for immunity, and the entire scam operation was dismantled permanently. The porch flag is still up, higher than ever. Grandpa added a second pole, not for another flag, just a metal sign that says, "We don't break. We broadcast." "You regret not pulling the trigger?" I asked him one night. "I regret that it had to get this far," he said. "But I'll tell you what feels good to win." The house stayed ours. The system collapsed. The names were cleared. This isn't a story about revenge. It's about survival. About remembering that the people they try to erase are usually the ones worth remembering.